From the author of Spinsterella, a strange and unusual romance and spellbound, a darker shade of black comes the legendary Magic Children. Pick up the conclusion of the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers this Halloween. For all this controversy talking about how we need to remove Confederate statues and how they represent racism and how they are symbols of racism, I find it strange that there's a website that no one in the liberal movements of Antifa or Black Lives Matter, are going out of their way to talk about. What is that website? That website is Ghetto Gaggers. And on this Ghetto Gaggers website, we oftentimes see backgrounds that feature the Confederate flag and individuals wearing Confederate flags going out of their way to humiliate African American women as they participate in pornographic sex acts. And while they're participating in these pornographic sex acts, they're often participating in acts of violence where they slap these women, they call these women B's, they call these women H's, they call them the N-word, and they go out of their way to make them sit in their own filth, or they make them eat watermelon and fried chicken, all while they're participating in the most degrading sexual acts known to man. And I noticed that it's odd that we don't hear a single word from your Antifa, your Black Lives Matter, or many of these other groups that say that these Confederate statues are racist about this website where racism and violence are participated on the regular. No one in any of these organizations has said a single word about your Ghetto Gaggers or having this website taken down. However, they've gone out of their way to take down many other websites of white supremacists, mostly those that feature white supremacist men, but no one is talking about this white supremacist website. This white supremacist website, for some reason, has gotten a pass from these liberals, but they're all up in arms over other websites, and they're all up in arms really about these Confederate statues. And when you see the hypocrisy presented by their lack of action on Ghetto Gaggers, it shows us how disingenuous many on the left are as related to their so-called campaign to remove Confederate statues and Confederate symbols. It seems like they are only out to move the statues and not really deal with the whole institution of white supremacy that they say they're denouncing, because this site, Ghetto Gaggers, clearly meets the standards for community standards for obscenity, but this website gets a pass by all those liberals on the left. Meanwhile, they're upset about a statue that has been sitting there for 100 years. This website, which has been in operation for over 5 years, has been ignored primarily by African American groups. And the only people talking about this website on the regular have been African American men who have been trying to make efforts to try to deal with this website, but no one wants to talk about it outside of a small group of African American men. Everyone else is all upset about statues, but this website has been in operation for over 5 years, and not a single word has been said from any of your liberal white groups or your Black Lives Matter or many of your other black groups, which say that they're out to remove these statues because these statues, who have been sitting around for over 100 years, are racist. But the racism in this Ghetto Gaggers website gets a pass from them. And what's really crazy about this whole thing is I think it's mostly about publicity, because they can get publicity for going against removing these Confederate statues, and they can get attention for removing those statues. And that leads to donations to their nonprofits so they can make money by promoting this cause. Going after Ghetto Gaggers, there's no real money in that, and there's no real fame in that. And that shows us, again, how disingenuous they are about helping out the black community. This site presents some of the most degrading images of African American women and some of the most racist behavior and most violent behavior in pornography, yet no one wants to raise a campaign to deal with this website because there's no photo op and no publicity like they would with dealing with these Confederate statues. And when it comes down to these Confederate statues, everyone only has a problem with them, really, because as many are seeing, it's all about pushing the narrative of this liberal. And the liberal really is looking for a scapegoat to deal with the fact that they lost the 2016 election. And they really want to try to find some way to make themselves appear to be some sort of hero to the masses. They believe if they get these Confederate statues taken down, they can revise history to make themselves look like heroes, when in actuality, it was Democrats who were on the side of the Confederacy. And again, this is all about revising history to make their image look good, when in actuality, many of them were the foundation for organizations like the Ku Klux Klan and the Confederacy. And this is all about whitewashing history to make themselves look like the good guy, when we can always see throughout history in America, Americans weren't really the good guys and when related to America. You cannot erase white supremacy, but these guys are going to try to make an effort to erase the white supremacy they feel uncomfortable about, meanwhile giving a pass to other forms of white supremacy, not understanding that white supremacy permeates throughout the American culture and throughout American history. And for them to say we need to denounce white supremacy and go after white men, again, shows how hypocritical they are, because for them to say we're going to shut down these websites that feature white racists and then give ghetto gaggers a pass, shows us all how disingenuous and dishonest many on the left are as it relates to this whole cause of removing white supremacist symbols. If ghetto gaggers can stay up, so can the Confederate statues, because both of them fall under the First Amendment, and they are forms of freedom of expression and freedom of speech. And when you remove one person's freedom of speech and freedom of expression, it creates a slippery slope where everyone's freedom of speech and freedom of expression are put at risk. And the reason why people want to do that on the left is because their candidate lost the 2016 election, and they believe that grassroots freedom of speech and freedom of expression is what led to their candidate losing. And because they don't want freedom of speech to continue, they want to continue controlling the voices, silencing voices, and controlling the narrative. If you'd like to see me make more videos on this channel, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct titles in my publishing imprint, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.